Hello, and thanks for listening to another podcast of the Gospel Rescue Mission. We really appreciate you taking time to listen to us today, and hope that the topic of today you'll find interesting. Today's topic, we'll talk about focusing on secondary relationships first. In the same way that miners used to use a bird in a cage to determine the breathability of the air in a mine shaft, the quality of relationships that you have and are able to keep will be a good determiner of your readiness for independence. If a bird in a cage dies, the mine is no longer safe for the humans to work in it. So it is with basic relationships, that when basic relationships are difficult or even possible to maintain, shunning will eventually result, and this will always lead to a loss of independence eventually. The odd irony is that no one remains independently. While most people easily recognize the value of primary relationships, such as a spouse or children or parents or siblings, we often overlook and undervalue the roles of secondary relationships and the role that they play. Secondary relationships, for lack of a better term, are the supporting roles to virtually every other relationship. These include relationships like employers and landlords, neighbors, extended families and in-laws and such. The simple fact is that when we disregard or behave in ways that destroy the secondary relationships, our primary ones will surely fall apart in very short order. So if we're going to eventually ever develop or heal any of our primary relationships, we have to start by demonstrating that we value our secondary ones. Success at the small things will develop trust and produce huge results in the more important ones. Let me tell you a story about Laura. Laura came into the mission with 2 small children in tow. She looked like neither she or her children had bathed in a week, and she had done a moderate job of covering things up. Her toddler was in a stroller, and her 6-year-old was quietly playing with a doll on the floor. Laura begins her story by raging about the toddler's father for not paying child support and being in jail for drug distribution. When asked about the possibility of her staying with her family, she explains that her judgmental family hates her because she relapsed so much that they're just not an option. Well, when we ask, what about your friends? She replies she doesn't have any that are close, and she finds people hard to get close to. In her words, I have trust issues. I don't know. I guess I kind of have social anxiety disorder or something. I've applied for disability. Well, so you ask, well, tell me where you and your kids have been staying before you came here. Well, we stayed a couple nights in my car, but before that we had an apartment. The landlord kicked us out because my kids were too noisy for the neighbors, and I was going to be late on rent again. Yeah, I was only able to take what I could find and fit in the trunk of the car, so we just left everything and decided to give the mission a try. Besides that, DHS told me that if I didn't get out of the car, that they would take my kids from me. So I just told them, like I told the landlords, that they could just F off, and I was going to go to the mission. So here I am. You see, Laura's trouble, they're so layered that it might seem hard to know where to begin. But one thing's easy to spot is how utterly dysfunctional she is with all of her relationships. You could hand that girl $1 million in cash, and if she was never forced to receive help with her relationship skills, you could guarantee she'd be back on the streets within a year. Unfortunately, her story is so common at the Gospel Rescue Mission for the kinds of people that are coming to us looking for help. Seeing herself as some kind of victim of everyone else, her deadbeat boyfriend, her judgmental parents, her landlord, her neighbors, DHS, etc., she has learned to blame shift and never consider her own poor relationship skills as the most likely culprit. Never solving the problem, the medical community will gladly give her psychiatric medication, and the government will eventually give her just barely enough money to survive. She'll end up checking nearly any box on the homeless point in time count, except for the one that says homeless by choice when it comes to take part in this event. Our communities across the country sit back and scratch their heads at city council meetings puzzling over why are there so many homeless people in our town. Meanwhile, the lords of the world are so lonely, desperate, anxious, and afraid that they'll likely go right back to drugs and alcohol themselves just to stay calm and find release from the tension of the moment. What she really needs is to learn how to make and keep proper relationships. And if she'd paid attention to this canary, she could realize when she has become socially toxic in need of help. Sadly, Laura's story isn't some obscure, memorable oddity. Her story reflects a large portion of the thousands of men and women that my staff and I have come across at the Gospel Rescue Mission. Among those folks that would never set their foot in the mission for fear of rules and religion and social anxiety, stories like hers are even more common. And unless and until we recognize that a person's inability to maintain secondary, seemingly less critical relationships is a warning sign that they are utterly dysfunctional and with their primary and most important relationships, then we're missing a tremendous opportunity to really help the lords of the world and the homeless people in our community. Well, there you have it. It's another Gospel Rescue Mission podcast. I hope that was helpful. And again, if this interests you and you think that it might be interesting to somebody else, please share it. Tell other people about us. You can donate to the Gospel Rescue Mission by going to our website and clicking on the Donate tab. Our website is grantspassmission.org, and we'd sure love to hear from you and get some feedback from this podcast and let us know what you think and maybe share that with a friend. God bless you and have a great day.